All right, Ashlee, author of The Hurricane Within. This is awesome. Thank you for the book, by the way. I'm very excited about this. Definitely, I almost bought it actually, and then I didn't. I was like, I'm gonna hold off, see what happens. But I'm excited about it, so thank you for that. You are a coach, right?
Correct.
Like
yes.
a business coach, personal coach.
I call it an empowerment life coach. So I really just
Okay.
kind of help people reestablish their purpose and empower them to reach their goals.
Cool. And public speaking, apparently RV extraordinaire, right? Doing cross country road trips. What brought you to the Emerald Coast? Like, so where are you from? What got you here?
Sure. So a little bit of background about me. Born and raised in Detroit. So my heart's still a little sour from the Lions game this past Sunday. My Detroit people listening will understand that. So born and raised there, middle class home, mediocre, but raised around the Great Lakes. So grew up loving the water. I was on the swim team in high school and just pretty much an athlete. Grew up loving sports. Academically not so great, but we all have our own gifts. So moving forward, just really found a passion to wanting to serve my country, and looking at the different branches, I realized, well, I think my parents would feel a little bit better if they knew I was joining the Coast Guard, so I'd be somewhere on American soil, wherever that would take me.
Right.
So decided to join, wanted to be in aviation, so I, 2005, became an avionics electrical technician. And moving forward in my career, became a flight mechanic, and so I would instruct different upcoming airmen on how to work the hoist, work the radio comms, and just safely navigate every mission that we would go on. So that's everything sort of in a nutshell.
Yeah, nice. So you brought up, just for anyone listening who doesn't know, the Coast Guard is Department of Homeland Security.
Correct.
So that's why you said you stay on U.S. soil. They, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's my understanding that they can be deployed if they're activated, but for the most part, they're a Homeland Security, so they're stateside.
Correct, yeah. For the most part, we'll get orders attached to the U.S. soil somewhere. But for example, we have detachments all over the Middle East. We have Coast Guard cutters that do response out there alongside of our other military branches. Yeah. We go and do a lot of missions down in the Caribbean, so I did a lot of drug enforcement, law enforcement down in Gitmo. So I've been Gitmo there in Cuba a handful of times, and we just really do whatever it takes to guard the American soil, just like our fellow military members are out, protecting other places. So
you'll have to excuse my ignorance here, because I'm sure this is going to be the wrong word. But were you on a boat or a ship or a cutter?
Yeah, so I was an aviator. We have aviation units all throughout the coast, and so I was attached to various air units, and so we do missions where we go and do basically detachments. So when I was stationed at Selfridge in Michigan, for example, we would get 2-month long TUI deployments down to the back of a cutter in the middle of the Caribbean somewhere. So we would fly down on our helicopter, attached to that cutter, and basically do search and rescue, drug interdiction, migrant operations, kind of that whole spiel. So yeah, we do a lot of crazy stuff that I don't think a lot of civilians and other military branches even know about. So that's cool. That's another reason why I shared my story in my book, so I can kind of educate the general public.
Nice. Were you ever stationed? I don't have any idea what the base was, but were you ever? It's in Tillamook Bay, Oregon.
I was not, but we do have a Coast Guard aviation unit up that way. Unfortunately, I never made it out to the Pacific Northwest, although I wanted to. In Alaska, I wanted all those units, but Detroit, New Orleans, North Carolina, that's primarily where I was stationed at. So
I asked because I did some training with that unit going through my tech school. We had to do open ocean survival training, so it was the Coast Guard who hosted us out there, and they hoisted us out of the water, and we got to work with some of the, I don't know what helicopters they ran, but whatever the rescue helicopter was, we got to work with some of the rescue swimmers, and they made sure that we never had calm seas when we did our open ocean raft survival, so they just drove a cutter around us and made huge waves.
Yeah.
Make sure we were showing up for 12 hours.
For sure.
It was great.
Yep. That is our advanced rescue swimmer. I'm gonna butcher the name of it, but something that's where we do like our intense practicing. But yeah, that person that was lifting you out of the water on that hook, that was pretty much my job. So.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So yeah, that was my first experience with the Coast Guard, and then I worked with another unit down out of Key Largo. I don't know where the actual base was. I don't think it's Key Largo, but South Florida. It's the first key that you had coming off the mainland, and they did some awesome stuff with us out there. So it was always a good experience, and the Coast Guard was very accommodating.
Yeah.
Help us out with training, which was always cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, we like to undersell, over deliver.
Yeah.
You know, we're that low key branch that's pretty BA that nobody really knows about.
I like it. I would say, and I say this about the Air Force too, but I've talked to a lot of people that were prior Marines, or I'm sorry, I shouldn't say prior Marines, they get mad about that. Marines, or Army, right? That after they retire, they're like, oh, I should have joined the Air Force, or I should have joined the Coast Guard. I've never met anyone who retired or separated out of the Air Force or Coast Guard that was like, should have joined the Army.
Yeah, we are the hidden branch of like where everybody. I flew with numerous pilots who were like previous, Marines or Air Force, and they're like, man, I should have started off my career in this. And I'm like, shh, don't go telling people now.
Don't tell everybody.
Yes.
So we were talking earlier. You said you ended up separating or retiring out of Louisiana.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So I medically retired after 14 years.
Okay.
I had been dealing with some underlying health issues, and anybody who's understand an autoimmune diagnosis will relate to that. Some days I'd feel 100%. I was in the CrossFit gym, throwing massive weights around, and then there'd be other days I could barely, hold my head up. It was just kind of a weird thing. So ultimately, that long journey ended in my medical separation. So at 14 years, I separated. But this was just after Hurricane Harvey, which I speak a lot about in my book, just sharing some pretty intense rescues that happened then, and also being at the Presidential State of the Union. So, I ended on a very high note, which I think everybody, tries to end on a bang. So, no regrets there, and God's good. He purposed me in other places now. So.
Very cool. So you got out of there, and then you decided to buy a sweet truck, which I like very much. And was it pretty much immediate? Like you medically retired, and then you were like, road trip time?
Absolutely. So I had about a year from my beginning of my medical separation, my med board process, to when I was out. So I did all the taps, but I still literally had no clue because, as you can probably relate to, that's all I knew for 14 years was fixing helicopters and flying on missions. So I had no clue, what am I going to do with my hands kind of thing. So, being a Christian, I totally just prayed about it. I said, God, I'm in a spot, man. I don't know what the heck I'm going to do, so just guide me. So I literally was like, all right, well, I'm going to buy this truck, buy this sweet fifth wheel, and hit the road. And this was right as COVID was kicking off too. So I was like, cool, I've got my self-contained home. Nobody can yell at me. So I just went on a cross country. I went from New Orleans down to the Keys, then up to Michigan, stayed for a little while visiting friends. And then I was like, I'm heading out west, man. The West is called the mountains. I just love the mountains. And so I went out there, and when I got to Montana, that's kind of where, I felt God telling me to rest and figure it out. And that's where I met my now husband, Nate, who retired out of Eglin here and road tripped it up to Montana the same time I was road tripping, and we met there, which is really wild.
Divine intervention.
That's right, for sure.
That's awesome. So he decided to retire, Air Force road trip, and you guys didn't know each other before.
No idea.
Bumped into each other at RV park?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. I was on my road trip. I stayed in Montana, helping out with these harvest host people that had this wedding venue that was so beautiful. It's called the Silver Knot in Polson. It's such a beautiful place. Okay. But I was there for about a month, and as much as I loved it, I kind of wanted some friends. I was kind of bored a little bit, and I love golfing. So I was like, man, I've heard about this Bumble app. Let me just get on, see if I can meet somebody, go have dinner, and go to golf. I wasn't looking for anything serious. But my husband was one of the first people that I matched with.
Isn't it funny how that works?
It's crazy. I literally was.
Don't want anything serious. And
dude, for real. That's honestly how it worked. Is I was like, I just want a friend to golf with. No strings attached. Go to dinner, have golf. See you later. Great date. And I met this dude, and I was like, man, we both are military, retired, love dogs, love golfing, love fishing, boating, nature, hunting, the whole thing. Right. And so it kind of evolved, and then here we are today. So.
Nice. So what brought you back here from Montana?
Well, that's where my husband's family is at. Love them to death.
They're here? They're in Montana?
They're in Montana. Okay. So when we were there, we started dating, obviously, and love his family to pieces, but it's always nice to put a little mileage between in-laws. And we love fishing, and my husband had a boat down here still. So he actually was trying to become a contractor over in, I think, Abu Dhabi. He was in the process of going over there, and then he met me, and then COVID kicked off, and I was like, you're not going anywhere. So yeah, long story short, that'll all be in my second book, but we ended up coming back here to the Emerald Coast. I love this area. I mean, like-minded people, veterans, community, and so fishing and golfing year-round, which isn't bad.
That's not bad at all. That's definitely the place for it. So you got back here. When did you start writing the book?
Actually, before I even retired, I had a lot of downtime because I was no longer on flight status, so I was training petty officers, so I was doing a lot of logistics and helping people with the check-in and making sure their MINs were complete. And so in my downtime, I would just sit there and like write a paragraph, write a page, and just kind of, quite frankly, it started off as therapy for me because there was things in my life that I went through that I really wasn't ready to verbalize to anybody, but I was ready just to get it off. And writing my story kind of helped that beginning process of my own healing journey. And never did I ever intend to publish it, but one day I gave it to my best friend, and she was like, she called me literally in like 2 hours, and she's like, what the heck? I just read your entire story. I've been your best friend for 20 years, and I'm learning things about you that I never knew. She goes, you need to publish this. You will inspire people. And I was like, no. And then just again, I prayed about it, and God put it on my heart to share my story. So that's kind of how that evolved.
Awesome. So what is the book about? Give me the elevator pitch.
Sure. So, well, it's half professional, half personal. So I talk about some things that, I dealt with my family. There was some addiction there. I had a pretty traumatic event personally before joining the military that I really never dealt with. And again, I'm sure the listeners can relate to going through something traumatic, not dealing with it, having negative coping mechanisms, going drinking, kind of running as far away from God and healing and all that as possible. And that's kind of where I was in all of my 20s. I look back, I'm like, ugh, that was who I was. But anyways, the reason I wrote it is because I'm sick of knowing that there's people hurting in the world, particularly in our veterans community. The suicide rate is extreme, and if I can play my one little part and just plant a seed of inspiration into one person that raised my story, it makes me feel validated knowing that everything I went through in my life was not in vain rather. So that's my motivation. I don't care about awards. I don't care about accolades on my behalf. It's like, hey, if there's one person that's alive today because they were like, wow, she overcame that, I can too. That's what life is all about to me.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Very cool. So the book is your personal story, pre-military. I'm guessing the hurricane play for what the Coast Guard does, helping people throughout hurricanes and stuff. Very nice.
Sorry, I forgot to mention that second part was
no, it's fine.
The personal side, and then my hurricane rescue is really giving people an insight of what it's like being in that helicopter in these missions, really understanding what Coast Guard aviation is all about, and just feeling like they're right alongside me through the whole entire time.
So someone who's not super familiar with the Coast Guard, I think I am, but who knows? A lot of what you are doing, if you're not, I would say, defending the homeland, is helping with search and rescue and recovery. SAR is a huge part of the Coast Guard and their mission. And you even said you run hoists, so you probably have experience with pulling people out of floods and off of rooftops. And there's not a lot of canyons around here, but out of canyons and stuff. Is that fair? Is that accurate?
That would be 100% accurate.
Okay.
We're pretty much a multi-mission service, and I kind of joke we're jack of all trades, master at none sort of thing.
Right.
So a typical day for us is I compare it to being a firefighter. So like every 4 to 5 days, we stand a 24-hour shift as an air crew, and we're kind of just on call as the B0 for anything. There's a fisherman who chop their arm off out in sea. We go pick them up and we bring them to the hospital. If there's a missing kayaker or a hurricane that touches land and we have to do natural disaster response. So basically anything that requires assistance on our natural soil, we're there to do it. So.
Yeah. What were some of the most impactful experiences you had in the military, particularly with out on a mission or seeing something, or there's usually always a couple things that really stand out to people. I'm sure the answer is read the book, right?
Right.
I'm sure it's in the book, so read the book.
Yeah.
But, what would you say? What were some of those experiences?
Man, I would say first, being honest with you, the hurricane rescues and just risking your life and looking into the eyes of these people who tasted pretty much death, and then you were their savior in that moment. I don't know any of their names. I don't know any of their stories, any of their histories, but like their eyes and their faces are always, forever ingrained into my mind. So I think about that whenever I get down on myself or, just kind of have a bad day. I think like, wow, these people are alive and walking around for the sacrifice that we did. So
Right.
that's probably my number one most impactful, is just knowing that we did the mission, we did it successfully, and there's people alive today because of that. The second thing I'll say is, quite frankly, working with bad leadership has taught me more than anything I could ever express. And the bad leaders have taught me what not to be moving forward and how to truly connect with people and be the best leader that I can be. So in those moments of having bad leadership, you're kind of obviously frustrated and annoyed, but like I want to thank those bad leaders because they taught me everything of what not to be and how I can be the good leader that I hope that I am today.
Yeah. I think the military, and I can say from my experience in the military, and my experience is predominantly with Air Force and Army. I have some experience with the Navy and Coast Guard, but not a deep experience. I think the way that it's set up, and I'm assuming this is the same with all of it, it's designed to create really solid leaders, but you have to have a leader to start with. You have to have someone to mold, right? If you look at a business, say even a big business, if you have someone who's amazing at a job, but they're not a leader, leave them alone. Let them do their job. The military doesn't facilitate that mindset. It's like, you've been in 8 years, you need to test, you need to be an NCO, or you need to be a major, and you need to start leading people. And it's one of my big points of frustration. Like, if the guy's really good as a mechanic, doesn't want to be in charge of people, because you're gonna turn him off to the job that he's doing. And he could be the best mechanic in the military. If he hates leading people, then like leave him alone, or her. It doesn't matter.
For sure.
It's so frustrating for me to see, because you have these people that could have done great things in their career field, but then it's like, no, you're gonna go lead people, and they're like, I have no desire to do that.
Yeah, that is 100% my husband's story. I'm clearly the more, front of the house, outgoing people person. My husband is phenomenal, but he's more back of the house. Like, he is a mechanic, he is analytical, spreadsheets, all that. And he had frustrations because he just wanted to work and get the job done. And then they tried putting him in all these leadership positions. He's like, it's not that I don't want to be a leader. I just prefer to lead people and show them how to be a mechanic and that kind of stuff. So he had some frustrations in his departure there because they were forcing him to, basically exactly what you said, do a position that he told them openly, like, hey, I don't think this is for me.
Right.
But yeah, it's the military way, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. When it breeds bad leadership,
Yes.
At the end of the day. And again, you get both results out of it. You get some really great leaders that come out of it, and then they can inspire people and move people forward. And you get people who think they're leading, but they're really just filling a role, and it ends up, turning a lot of people off and turning people away and making them not want to be there. I had same experience, right? Some horrible leaders you learn a lot from them.
Definitely.
You're absolutely right. And I love the way you worded it, that you learn a lot from them and you can have those experiences, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure that wasn't probably an expected answer, but for me, that's truly profound because it molded me. Like, man, like I couldn't stand these leaders, and I don't want to do that for my people. Like, I want to actually, if I'm telling you to swab the deck, you best believe I have no problem picking up a mop and standing right beside you.
Right.
It's not a dictatorship. It's you want people to want to work hard for you, that you connect with. So that's something that's important for me today.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, if, brings you where you are today and you're happy where you're at today, then, that's a good thing. I could say, had I had better leadership, I might have stayed in the military longer.
My husband is exactly the same way. Yep.
It was due to some bad leadership and bad leadership decisions, both on the national level and at my immediate level, and and the leaders that I sat behind closed doors with, that I was like, I just thought it was is unfortunate because
Yes.
it drove me away. And I'm sure there are many other people that are no longer in for the same reasons.
Absolutely. I'm tracking 100%.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that's why I believe now they're having retention rates and issues recruiting. It's like, well, I mean, you kind of dug your own grave with that, unfortunately, but hopefully that'll change soon.
Yeah, I hope so. Hopefully they can step back and say this isn't a recruiting problem. This is a leadership problem. People don't want to come in because of what exists in the system right now. It's not because 18-year-olds don't have a desire to serve their country. There's a lot of 18-year-olds who, like, college isn't for me. Life's hard right now. There's no good jobs out there. The military is a good option, but do you want to go serve in these conditions? They're like, no. I'll work 3 jobs before I go do that.
Yep.
Hopefully they figure something out. Anyways, enough about bad leadership. That kind of drove you into, when did the book publish, by the way?
September 2019.
Okay.
Yes.
When did you separate?
September 2019.
Perfect.
Yep. I had my dots in a row, and I had it ready to rock and roll the second I was out.
Yeah.
So I was ready to share it.
That was that the same year as Hurricane Michael?
I believe Hurricane Michael was 2018.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Or end of 17. I could be wrong. They kind of all blend together.
It wasn't 17 for sure.
Yes.
I owned a house in Panama City, and I was out there the day after. It wasn't 17, but I didn't remember if it was 18 or 19.
I think it was 18.
Okay.
Yes.
That sounds right too. Were you involved with that at all?
No, actually, so Hurricane Harvey was sort of my ending point, because shortly thereafter I got diagnosed with my autoimmune condition. I was grounded from flying. So that was, Hurricane Harvey was August 2017. And so I think I was grounded, September or something. So yeah, I was off of flying status at that point, and just kind of helping everybody with logistics.
Hurricane Harvey hit Texas, right?
Houston, Texas.
Okay.
Yes.
I got stranded in Mexico because of Hurricane Harvey.
Wow.
Hurricane Harvey came in, and we were in Mexico. We were supposed to fly back in through Houston, and they were like,
nope.
Houston's underwater. Like,
yes. Yep, it's crazy. I was one of the very first helicopters on scene, like as it hit landmass, just plugging people, off roofs, and it truly was wild, wild west and apocalyptic in a sense.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yep.
That was I say a high note to go out on. I don't mean to make little of the experience and the damage that happened, but what a cool experience to be able to go help people that, might have died without it, legitimately.
Right. Honestly, I feel so blessed beyond words, because, people are like, oh, you got an air medal, oh, you went to the state, like, none of that matters to me, quite frankly. It's like, man, people are alive. Like, forget the award, like, that's, cool, Right. Anybody that joins the service doesn't join for the accolades and the awards, they join for the mission and the purpose. Right. Well, hopefully, if you join for the wrong reasons, that's on you, but, so, I always just want to stay humble and share, my purpose behind, the hurricane and everything, write my book and all that, so.
Yeah. So is the book and I guess those experiences that what led you into the coaching?
Yeah, so it kind of is kind of a weird, evolvement or evolution, if you will. So I started off with my book, and then I would do various book signings, and then I got a couple jobs to be an inspirational speaker. And what bothered me is, I get on stage, I talk about all these pretty tough topics, and so when people come to the book signing table, they kind of want to, relate and share their tough situations as well. And I kind of got to a point where I was unintentionally dismissing them because, I'm signing books, I'm talking to like all these people. So I thought, how can I stop that? Because I don't want these people to think that I don't care about their story, because we all have one. So I thought, if I become a coach, I can say, hey, let's schedule a time to talk off topic, or, in a better space.
Right.
And so I can really facilitate hearing what you have to say and kind of, helping you if you need help through your healing process. So I became a life coach, mental health coach, did all the suicide awareness training. Everything that I could learn to just better help people.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how that evolved.
So is that your main thing that you're doing now?
Yeah, currently now I do that. Also, it's not 100%, but I'm about 95% sure I have a new position at a nonprofit. It's the Soft Missions.
Okay.
They're based out of Tampa, and they do amazing rehabilitation for our veterans. They focus on 4 pillars of healing, and I'm going to be their new spiritual mentor. So that's really exciting for me, just to, again, I love all people, but our veteran community, we need to really focus on their healing and their care. So.
Yeah. What's the name of the nonprofit?
Soft missions.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Soft missions.
Yep,
Gotcha. I
soft
thought you were saying it
missions.
was like they were related to the.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
nope,
gotcha.
they're just soft missions. Yep,
Cool.
out of Tampa. They do their gala here yearly, actually in Destin. So I've been attending their gala for years, supporting the mission, and then an opportunity arose for me to join. And so again, it's not 100%, but I'm pretty sure I'm about 95% in.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let me know when the gala's coming up here, because I would love to try and join that. I like trying to stay plugged in as much as I can.
Absolutely. It is in April. I'll have to solidify the dates with
Okay.
you. But yeah, and aside from that too, I also volunteer at the Okaloosa Veterans Court. So some of our veterans and active duty that are going through some issues in the court system, I also help them out, just, being their accountability partner and just letting them know they're not alone in their struggles. So yeah. And then the Honor Foundation I mentioned as well.
Yeah.
Jack of all trades.
Busy. You're not busy. It's fine. And you're writing another book.
Yes.
So nice. Are you actively writing your next book?
Oh man, it's to full transparency, I'm not a writer. I don't have the skill set to really write. I try. So what I do is write, again, a paragraph here or there, and I'm trying to be better at it. I just ordered a dictation software, so hopefully speaking that is a little bit easier for me than sitting there typing. So it is in progress, so stand by for
cool.
that one.
Okay, cool. I was just going to ask, do you use any kind of dictation or anything like that? That'll be nice, because that'll write it for you, and then you can go back and clean it up and figure it out. But that's also nice. I was actually just talking to my wife, and she woke up last night with some ideas, and she's like, I think I need a notebook by the end table. And I was like, why not a tape recorder? You don't have to turn lights on. You can just reach over, hit record.
That's right.
Say whatever you want to say into it. Wake up the next morning, listen back, or even now with phones, or there's
Voice
software.
memos,
It'll write it for you. You just wake up, and you're like, look at all my notes. I'm so smart at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep. It's amazing. All right, so the next book is in progress. We'll call it.
Yes.
You're maybe having a position at Soft Mission. You volunteer at the Honor Foundation, and what was the other one? Court?
Yep, the Okaloosa Veterans Court.
Okaloosa Veterans Court. You've separated fairly recently, so I like to seeing the process of separation. There's a lot there for people, but I think a lot of people don't know about what's there. And I think some of the problem, my experience with TAPS, didn't do it here, so I don't know what it's like here. TAPS is, for anyone listening who doesn't know, it's a separation requirement that everyone has to go through. It was run by government employees, GS6s, contractors, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but they weren't passionate about it. It was more of a check in the box, like many things are in the military, versus like, we're really going to make sure that you learn and develop. So if someone's 6 months, a year out from separating, what is your recommendation to them?
I would just most likely say, first and foremost, is take some time, if you can financially, take some time to decompress. A lot of, especially our special operations members, they're so used to that high, fast-paced environment that they want to go right from one job and zoom into another. And I really think for mental health purposes, and just really, figuring out who you are so that you can align your purpose with your next step in life, just take some time, whether that's a month, whether that's 6 months. Again, I know financially a lot of people can't do that, but I really think that decompression stage is hugely important for that transition, because you're able to just kind of quiet your thoughts, heal from whatever. I mean, go hike the Appalachian. Like, I know a lot of people that go do that, and they come back and they're just like, man, I'm so glad I did that. So my recommendation is if you can, take some time to decompress and really figure out who you are, heal from whatever you need to heal from, so that way, A, your family gets the best version of who you are, because your family deserves that. And B, so that you're really prepared mentally and spiritually and physically and all that for your next, next phase in life. So.
Yeah, nice. I've had so many people I've talked to that are getting out, and they're like, the disability is always like a big thing. And I know for me, when I got out, I was always comparing myself. I would see people that were double amputees or significant burn victims, and I always felt like, I don't deserve it, I'm not going to go for it, and it was a fallacy, essentially. I was just kind of in this mindset of like, well, if they're getting this stuff, then that's who it's there for. But one, it's there for everyone getting out. And two, the VA, it's not a competition. The VA says, these things have happened to you while you're in, so go get these things taken care of. I started telling everyone that I was fighting the VA for 2 years, and I was finally like, I have to hire someone. Like, I'm tired of fighting them. I'm tired of this. When I hired someone, I had to go through the wickets with the company, but they submitted the paperwork, and when I would submit paperwork, it would take 4 months, 6 months. When they submitted the paperwork, they made a decision in 3 days.
Yes.
I was like, oh, okay. So, no, I love it. Go find some space to clear your mind. I think that's great.
And if I can just kind of, double down on that, if I could remind you, if we have some veteran listeners here, I felt the same way you did. I'm like, oh man, no, I'm good. Like, we're so selfless to like a fault. Like, there's somebody else out there who needs it. But can you take a moment and think about all the birthdays you missed, all the time with your family, the relationships you lost? Like, both of my parents passed away when I was in, and I lost time with them, you know, and so maybe not all of our due recompense is necessarily because I'm a double amputee or, I have PTSD. It's think about everything you sacrificed, and that includes everything I just mentioned. So you deserve it. Again, the military didn't have any problem taking and sending you and all those things. Right. So it's your turn to get what you are owed. So go out and do that.
Well, and getting what you're owed isn't taking from anyone else.
That's right.
There's not a set amount in the pool that says like, well, if we give it to this person, we can't give it to this person. No, there's enough for everyone.
That's right.
You just have to go fight the monster, as it were. You have to go battle the dragon and say, this is the gold that I'm owed for what I did, for my sacrifice. And, it's worth the fight.
That's right.
Get yourself taken care of, because it's there for you to take care of yourself so you can go hike the Appalachian Trail.
That's right.
So you can take 6 months off and you can be financially, provided for and provide for those who need it, because it makes a difference.
It truly does.
So you got out and you took your own advice and you went on your road trip. What was that experience like for you?
It was one of the most amazing experiences in my life, and which is why I'm writing my second book about it. But there's something to be said about being on the road by yourself. You are absolutely excited, but strangely terrified at the same time. Thank God I had my dog and my guns with me, because I slept sound at night. But you deal, and again, like I said, the decompression stage is huge, because there was so much throughout my life, my military career, that I never faced. I never dealt with it. You just kind of pack it up in a box and you throw it in the back of your head, and you're like, you'll be good, you'll be all right. No, those boxes decay, and those things come open. So for me, when I was on that road trip, I'm faced with my thoughts, with my feelings, and I did a crazy amount of healing. And in that healing, I found just a surrender and, obedience to God's will for my life. And for me, again, I always stress, I'm a Christian, so that's obviously a big pillar of who I am. Right. But I never trusted God. I never said, all right, God, I did it my way, my whole life. And finally, on that road trip, I surrendered to God and said, okay, we're going to do it your way. And again, that's where a couple of weeks later, I got to Montana, and, in my prayer time, I felt God just say, hey, rest here for a while. And here we are. I met my husband. We're down here doing amazing things for our military members. So the healing process, and that, of course, the adventure. I mean, I was fishing in, these random lakes in Wyoming, and I was going hiking and just all this stuff by myself. And it was such an empowering, healing adventure that I'll never forget.
That's awesome. That's really amazing.
Thank you.
When you are, these different nonprofits that you're working for, I guess, what do they do? I think that's one of the things I struggled with when I first got out, was like, here's 1,000 resources. Here's a book full of resources. And I was like, well, I don't think I need any of these. So it was really clear, what they were, what they did. So let's say the elevator pitch for the different stuff that you're in and involved with, and when and why would someone plug into those?
I would just say connection is so huge. A lot of times, especially veterans, we self-isolate a lot because we can't relate a lot of times to civilians and things like that. I know I did. I just self-isolated. But the impact of community and going to, for example, a veterans retreat where everybody there has a story. Everybody has done wild missions, but you don't have to talk about it. You just with like-minded people who have been through the shit, for lack of a better term, with you in a different sense. And you can just have somebody there that has your six. So you're meeting people, you're connecting with people, and then when you are going through a rough time, maybe you can't really talk to your spouse about it because they don't understand, but you can hit up your brother or your sister that you met at these nonprofits or these veterans retreats that know and that can talk you off a cliff or that can remind you of your worth and your purpose. And so that's really just the pitch is community and going through these healing processes together, but also being able to talk about your cool stories. Not all of it's bad and trauma. You know, some of them are like, dude, let me tell you about this one time. And so to me, that's really what it's all about. And Soft Missions focuses again on those 4 pillars of recovery, which, you know, studies shown if you are lacking in just one of those pillars, you know, your whole overall well-being will suffer. So
I think something I experienced going to some of the veteran-specific events from different nonprofits that are out there is kind of the culture that's created within the military, not of the greater military, but within the smaller cliques of individuals, your friend group. You know, there's kind of a dark sense of humor, and there's these, you know, if you go to a normal church group, probably not going to understand your sense of humor. Right. You know, there's like certain things where you're self-censoring, and for good reason. I think it's kind of derived from like half the people once they leave, they could be really good friends. I'll never see them again. Yeah. And B, you know, I know at any point me or anyone else here could deploy tomorrow or go on and off and get killed. Like it's a high risk job, even at the most basic level. You know, so I think there's always this kind of in the back of your head, like, well, you could die at any point, so we'll just say what we're going to say.
Yep.
And I have not found that recreated outside of those veteran-specific communities, at least not that it's been easily accessible or an open group that anyone can just go join. You know, there's some more private or isolated groups that have that, so that's very cool. Is that what you want to continue doing?
I think so. I have such a compassion for our military and for our veterans. I love being able to help people and, you know, really help them to find their purpose again, because that's really what it's all about. Going from I'm this badass ranger, whatever, in the military to like, what does that translate to in the civilian world? Like, you know what I mean? There's a big disconnect. So if you can repurpose your life and your mission, then, you know, that's where you flourish and you don't just survive, you're now thriving.
Yeah, that's awesome. I personally experienced that going from what I was doing in the military. I got out and immediately went into real estate, and I love real estate. I enjoy what I do, but it was a big transition. I was like survival instructor, jumping out of planes, diving, and then it was like, hey, help this person negotiate this contract. And I was like, this isn't the same.
Right. Yeah.
Which actually led me, I recently opened up a survival school. So now I'm kind of redoing what I was doing in the military, but I'm bringing it, you know, more of a civilian side of it, not yelling at people. Making sure people eat all the food they need. But yeah, it's been a fun transition, but it's definitely been, it's closer to my heart, you know what I mean, as far as like what I want to do going forward and developing the school. So
that's so awesome. Reminds me of the show that my husband and I like to watch, Alone, and all those, like, or we watched a dude eat a mouse last night. I'm like, I don't want to like kind of go do that. Like, I probably couldn't last a month, but like, I feel like a week. I can do a week.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Super cool.
I want to, this is kind of a long-term vision. I'm working with a couple people right now on it, but I want to go take some of those shows, some of those more popular shows, and then find the reasons why people are eliminated, and not saying that any of them are bad survivors. I think some of them just make bad choices, or you could be one of the best survivors in the world, but you could be missing one skill or one piece of information that it's like, if I knew that, I could have kept going, you know, but you just didn't know.
Yeah.
So I want to try and create that with my program that I'm doing.
That's so
like,
fantastic.
have like, hey, this person was eliminated because of this, you know, had they known this, maybe it was more mental, maybe they were missing their family, but maybe they just didn't know this skill and it caused them to have to drop out.
For sure.
And I think a lot of people watch those and it's like, oh yeah, if I lost my fire striker, I might die too. I don't know how to do a bow and drill fire, and you know,
for sure,
there might be another option behind it. So.
Yeah, that's crazy too, because what I've noticed, there's a common thread. Like these people, like you said, I mean, they're survivalists. Their shelter looks like a house, you know, around the corner and all this stuff. But the common thread is that mental health. They're dealing, they're unpacking those boxes that I spoke about, and they're like, hey, I'm healing from stuff, but they come out on the other side of that like spiritual journey just so much stronger. So it's kind of cool to watch that unfold.
Being alone with your thoughts for a week doesn't sound like a lot. It's a lot.
It is a lot.
Especially if you're having to do something hard and difficult, staying alive. Like, survival is very challenging, but it's also not really engaging. You're like, okay, I set up my traps, my shelter's built, I have fire. Unless you have a lot of food, you shouldn't be doing very many other things. You should be conserving your calories. So if you're not foraging or hunting, you shouldn't be doing a lot more, so then you're just like sitting
thinking.
I'm sure a cross country drive isn't that much different. Like, I had
Yes.
14 hours on the road today.
Yep.
And 10 hours in, you're like, did that happen? Really?
Yeah. You face those demons, brother, and they come out full throttle.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. We're gonna stop early tonight. There's a lot of crying.
For sure. I'm dying. Emotions. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. No, I think that's really great advice. I told my wife, jokingly, well, not jokingly, actually, it's probably legitimately what I would do, but if something were to happen and they were to die, I was like, I'd probably sell everything and just go hike. I might be homeless for a year and just without a backpack and, go and just kind of be alone and recalibrate and figure out, what the next steps are. But, no, that's awesome. Where are you looking to try and, I guess, take your coaching and all 15 things you're doing in the next 5 years?
So just really trying to hone my skills. I feel like I've taken on a lot of hats lately, which I love doing, but I really want to continue, my education. I just completed my bachelor's in interdisciplinary studies and military resilience, which I find hugely beneficial, obviously, for what I do now. But just continuing those courses, mental health and suicide awareness, and just kind of continuing to hone my skills so that I can perfect helping others. So I want to continue doing what I'm doing, and hopefully soft missions will keep me on board, and I can continue, speaking hope and life and purpose into every person that I come across. So just being a light in what I consider a pretty dark world right now. So I'm just going to shine really bright.
There you go. I love it. Is Soft Missions going to pull you? You said they're in Texas?
In Tampa, Florida.
Oh, Tampa, okay.
Yeah, so it's a remote position, which is great.
Okay, so you can stay here.
Yeah, for the actual ladies clinics, which happen right now twice a year, I'll go in person and be there. But yeah, I'll be hosting a Tuesday night, just kind of spiritual mentorship Zoom call where all the veterans can come in and just, again, we can talk together and overcome challenges and really leave with practical ways to, strengthen our spirituality and face those battles, because they always are there, man.
Yep. They're there when you're ready to look at them.
That's right.
Do you do anything in person here as far as your coaching goes? Is that like in-person sessions, or how does it work?
So whatever my client wants, I'm all around building, a package, if you will, for them. So a lot of my clients just want to talk on the phone. Sometimes I'll Zoom. Sometimes we'll meet up and, kind of kill two birds with one stone if they're dealing with a little PTSD. We do some exposure therapy, and I come alongside them and I'm like, all right, we're in this together. Let's go have coffee. Let's go walk the park. Let's go hit some golf balls. So really, I just cater to them. Most of the time it is phone call. That way I have some veterans that I talk to out of state. So it's just important for me just to, hey, I'm here for you. You want to just call me up and vent for an hour? I'm here for that.
Right.
You want to learn some things about, the Bible and God? I'm here for that too. So whatever it looks like, I just try to facilitate that.
Nice.
Yes.
Very nice. That's definitely helpful sometimes. I mean, just having someone there that you can have, you can just call and vent, and it's non-judgmental, and it's like, it happens.
Confidential. I mean, people just want to be heard. They want their feelings to be validated. They want to know that, what they're going through, is they're not alone in that. And so I'm there, and I give them everything that they need so that they can leave feeling better and more empowered to face that next storm in life.
Nice. Very nice. If someone is coming down the Emerald Coast, if someone's on vacation or whatever, what are your favorite things to do here?
Well, I don't know if it's very conducive to the tourist population, but my favorite thing to do is my husband and I pack up the boat with firewood and a cooler and our tent, and we ride out to the sound, we beach our boat, and we kind of camp out there for the weekend. So that's one of my favorite things to do. But I would say anybody who loves fishing, catch a charter, man, go out, get some snapper. We're called the luckiest fishing village for a reason. Yeah. So lots of good fish out there right now. Chase the reds. They're in the Bay. I would also say the food, man, around here is phenomenal. I love Beauchamp's. I love McGuire's. Get a fat steak from McGuire's.
Yeah.
So just really enjoy the beaches, the food, and everything that Destin has to offer.
Nice. I think going on a beach in a boat, I don't know if you can rent like a pontoon boat overnight. I'm trying to think of anywhere I know that does it, if you wanted to take it for the night. But as long as you bring your own camping stuff, I mean, it's not that difficult if you're driving here. If you're flying here, that's it. Yeah, that's another hurdle. But there's plenty of good camping around here. If you want to make the drive out to Fort Pickens. Have you been out there?
Yes, definitely. We actually like to go up north about an hour. There's Bear Lake. Some really cool places. We'll either bring the RV or tent camp, but either way, if we're feeling glampish or tent camping. But just really getting out and enjoying the nature. It's so beautiful here from a nature aspect, so we just try to take advantage of that.
Yeah, it really is. The beaches are beautiful, but there's plenty of nice areas around here. Just bring your mosquito spray.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a real threat. That's a real problem. Awesome. We got anything else?
No, I just want to share with the listeners too, if anybody wants to purchase a copy of my book, they can go on Amazon. It's the Audible ebook, hardcover. We got the whole thing there. Also, if anybody has questions about, inspirational speaking or life coaching, they can go to my website, which is ashleeleppert.com. That's my maiden last name. So I'd be happy to share stories or, help them out if I can. So
awesome. So books on Amazon, you can get it there. You have ashleeleppert.com. Okay. Does that have all of your links, everything they can find all your stuff there?
Yep. So once this podcast is out, I'll add that to my podcast link there. So I've got all my podcasts, a little bit of history about me, life coaching, the whole nine there. So ashleeleppert.com, you can pretty much get anything there. So.
Very cool. We'll have all the details too. So go down to the show notes and you should be able to find all of your information.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks,
what a great
Ashlee.
conversation.
Yeah, it was great. I appreciate it.
Thank you.